Hello and welcome to Precon Decon, the video series where I deconstruct the pre-constructed decks of Magic the Gathering's history. In this video we're going to continue our look at Ravnica, and we're going to look at Golgari Deathcreep. So this is the first time the Golgari got a pre-constructed deck. So, Decklist here, so we've got 24 creatures, 2 enchantments, 6 instants, 4 sorceries, 24 land, mana curve off to the side there. Let's start looking at the original Golgari. So, one of the rares in the deck is Savra, Queen of the Golgari. This, I feel, is one of the better of the guild champions, as in like one of the rare creatures that cares about the effects tied to the guild's colours. So 2 colours, 1 black, green for a 2/2. Whenever you sacrifice a black creature, you can pay 2 life. If you do, every other player sacrifices a creature, and whenever you sacrifice a green creature, you can gain 2 life. Spoiler, you're playing Golgari, of course you're going to be sacrificing creatures. So Savra pulls a lot of weight in this deck. Yeah. I just think she's a pretty great creature, honestly. And then moving on, so we have 2 Drooling Grudions, which is really fun to say. So 3 colours, 2 black, 1 green for a 4/3. 2 colours, 1 black, 1 green, sacrifice a creature. One creature gets +2/+2 until turn, and another creature gets -2/-2 turn to turn, which is honestly that's a pretty fun effect. Obviously, gives Savra a sacrifice outlet, and also being able to buff a creature while simultaneously weakening or killing an opponent's creature. Yeah, super good effect. It's basically the consume strength spell from way back in Apocalypse, which I was really surprised it never got kind of reprinted, but it's nice to see it referenced here. Yeah, I think Grudions, I think it's a little expensive, for the initial body, 6 mana for a 4/3, but that ability I think is pretty strong. 2 Golgari Rotworms, so 3 colours, 1 black, 1 green for a 5/4. 1 black, sacrifice a creature, target player loses 1 life. Yeah, that's perfectly fine. Another good sacrifice outlet. While also reducing opponent's life. Surprisingly effective card, honestly, because I think it's decently costed for its stats, like 5 mana for a 5/4, which at the time is fine. And then that ability is okay as well, just to kind of sneak in an extra sort of like 1 or 2 bits of it's not damage, it's life loss. But yeah, I think Golgari Rotworm is pretty good. It essentially gives all your creatures this kind of contingency bonus, like if they're going to die anyway, might as well spend 1 black, sacrifice them, and get some use out of them. So yeah, I like Golgari Rotworm. 2 Woodwraith Strangler. This is not so great though. So 2 colours, 1 black, 1 green for a 2/2. Remove a creature card in your graveyard from the game. Regenerate Woodwraith Strangler. So I mean, the regeneration doesn't take any mana, which I guess is okay. But this is a deck where you kind of want your creatures in the graveyard. You don't want to be exiling them, especially for like quite weak effects like this. So yeah, and also like just being a 2/2 for like 4 mana is like not wonderful, honestly. So yeah, that would have been like the first card you would have cut, I think, the Woodwraith Strangler, just because it's not very good. So the other round the deck is Golgari Grave Troll, which is kind of nuts looking back on it. So this is quite a valued card, as I understand, in certain formats, just because he has Dredge, and now we get to talk about Dredge. So, firstly, he's 5 mana for a 0/0. He comes in with a +1/+1 counter for every creature card in your graveyard, which could be potentially a lot, as we'll see, because he also has an ability where you can remove a counter from him to regenerate him. But he has Dredge 6, so let's talk about Dredge, aka an ability where I'm really just not sure how it made it through playtesting as it is. So Dredge is if you would draw a card, instead you can dredge for the card. So dredging means you mill that many cards, and then you get the card back into your back from your graveyard to your hand. So yeah, if Golgari Grave Troll's in your graveyard, if it's been killed off, and you be like, I'm going to draw a card, start my turn. I really want my Grave Troll back. I'm going to mill 6, and then get my Grave Troll back, and then play him. And like, oh, he's probably bigger now because I've probably got more creatures in my graveyard because I've just had to mill 6. So yeah, yeah, Grave Troll I think is pretty good. I'm just gonna say now, I don't have a lot of experience playing Dredge, or playing against dredge, I just know it's, I just know it's a really it's a really, it's top tier strategy, and and good dredge decks obviously are obviously very, very good. um but yeah, I think, in my play group at the time we were very casual, and like we didn't like this. It sounds so stupid, but like we didn't like this idea of like milling cards to get it back, I guess, and be like, oh, what if I mill a really good card, and be like, but you'd get a really good card back as well, I guess. I don't know. I think Golgari Grave Troll is one of the best users of dredge. There are other obviously creatures with dredge in here, but yeah, obviously it's the best one. The others are okay, but yeah. So Golgari Brown Scale, 3 mana for a 2/3. When it's put into your hand from your graveyard, you gain 2 life. And it has dredge 2. So again, if it's in the graveyard and you want to draw it, okay, I'm going to mill 2, goes back into my hand, and I get 2 life because it's gone from my graveyard, gone into my hand from my graveyard. So that's okay. That's kind of like an innocent use of dredge. That's how I think dredge should be. Greater Moss Dog, 4 mana for 3/3 with dredge 3. Short, it's just very straightforward. I mean, the whole point of dredge is that it loads up the graveyard, doesn't it? So for like other reanimation trickery, I suppose. Because I suppose the dredge cards then feed the others. Because you could say Greater Moss Dog is in your graveyard. You want to dredge for it, okay? Dredge for 3, get it, and as part of those 3 that you've milled, maybe Golgari Grave Troll's in there. So next turn, be like, oh, okay, well now I'm going to dredge for Golgari Grave Troll. Maybe, I don't know. But as I said, very, very little first-hand experience with dredge myself, so I'm just guessing that's how it goes. If you have any experience with dredge, please put it in the comments below. I would love for my very casual play experience like mindset to be expanded and sort of explained why dredge is super, super good, because I sort of get it in theory, but I've never really seen it in practice of how good it can be. And then 2 Stinkweed Imp. This guy's pretty great. I think this is one of the other better dredge creatures. So 3 mana for a 1/2 flyer, and it has essentially it's old school Death Touch. Yeah, because it's just linked to combat damage. It's not any damage, but we're getting there with Death Touch. We're nearly there with Death Touch as it is today, and Dredge 5, which is it's like one of these. I think that's the thing with dredge. The higher the dredge number, the better it is. But yeah, this is really good, and obviously then serves as a repeatable, really good blocker. And then 2 Shambling Shell. I think this was the other pretty good dredge creature from what I remember. So 1 colorless, 1 black, 1 green. For a 3/1, sacrifice it to put a +1/+1 counter on a creature, and it has dredge 3. So this goes really well with Savra, because it can sacrifice itself. It's both black and green, so you get both the effects of making someone else sacrifice, and well, you don't gain the life because you have to pay the life to make someone sacrifice. But you're essentially then paying nothing to make other people sacrifice, and it gets a +1/+1 counter on things, which there's that kind of sub theme in Golgari, and it can dredge, so you get it back and then you do it next turn. So yeah, because I did have this deck, and I do remember kind of getting a few locks with kind of Shambling Shell and Savra, where you would just kind of keep dredging it back, playing it, make something bigger, and then make your opponent sacrifice. So yeah, Shambling Shell's pretty good, in my opinion. Golgari Guildmage. So 2 hybrid black-green mana. 4 colors, 1 black. Sacrifice a creature. Return a creature card from your graveyard to your hand. So that's a very expensive sort of raised dead effect, but it is a sacrifice outlet, which is fine. And then 4 colors, 1 green. Put a +1/+1 counter on target creature. That's also very expensive, I think. Yeah, I definitely think I get what they're trying to do. That they want to keep these abilities like the same cost for whatever reason. I feel like they could have been a bit cheaper though, because like that 4 black and to get a raised dead effect, that's 5 mana and you're sacrificing something, which I know in this deck you don't mind sacrificing stuff, but it's still very expensive, I think. 2 Elves of Deep Shadow. So I think this is a reprint from Ice Age, I want to say. Or like it's some really old set, but it's 1 green for a 1/1. Tap to add black to your mana pool, but it does 1 damage to you. Fine. I don't know why they decided to reprint this. I really don't know why it wasn't just Llanowar Elves but black instead of green without the damage. I don't know. I guess they really wanted the reprint, I suppose. And a single Elvish Sky Sweeper, 1 green mana for 1/1. 4 colors, 1 green, sacrifice a creature, destroy a creature with flying. Yep. Again, it's another sacrifice outlet, and, you know, destroys big creature with flying, I suppose. It's okay. 2 Infectious Host. So 3 mana for a 1/1. When it dies, target player loses 2 life, which is okay. It's a little expensive, I think, especially by today's standards. I think even at the time it was probably a little expensive. I think this could have been 2 mana; it would have been fine. But you know, it's one of these cards that like it gives you a benefit when it dies, which sort of ties into the whole deck of the whole theme of like sacrificing stuff. On the subject of sacrifice stuff, we have a single Thought Picker Witch. So this is actually really good. I really slept on this at the time, and like looking back on it now, like it's crazy that I kind of ignored it. So 1 black mana for a 1/1. 1 sacrifice a creature. Look at the top 2 cards of an opponent's library, and then exile 1 of them. Like that's a really strong ability, and it's on common. And it's a common creature. Yeah, and like, you know, you put this on deck where you kind of pump out a load of tokens. Yeah, this could potentially be a super, super mean card. You know, it's a sacrifice outlet, which the deck really wants. And yeah. Yeah, I just think Thought Picker Witch is really good. And like, I'm just, yeah, just really surprised. I kind of like, I know, just disregarded it at the time, being like, oh, whatever, it's trash black common. And I think looking back on it, it's actually a lot better than I originally gave it credit for. So moving on to non-creature spells, we have a single Moldavine Cloak, another sort of classic dredge card. So 3 mana for an aura gives a creature +3/+3, which is really, really strong. And you can dredge it for 2, so if the creature is on dies and you lose the cloak, you can, you know, mill 2, get this back, and then put it on another creature. So very, very difficult to get rid of. And yeah, it's quite a substantial buff as well. A single Necromantic Thirst, so 2 colors and 2 black for an aura. When an enchanted creature deals combat damage to a player, you get to raise dead, which is, you know, you want to be doing in this deck. A lot of your creatures are going to be dying all the time, so getting them back constantly is pretty good. 2 Dark Blast. Again, this is a card I really dismissed when it originally came out, and I think just because it was yeah, it just gives -1/-1, and just thought, oh, that's pretty useless. But the fact it's got dredge, so it's like it is technically repeatable removal. You can keep like pinking off like X1s, like little utility creatures. It's only 1 black mana, you know. Yeah, again, I think this is definitely better than I originally gave it credit for. And yeah, it's, you know, it's dredge, so it fuels what the deck's trying to do. So yeah, great card, I think. 2 Last Gasp. This is a bit more straightforward. It's just -3/-3 until end of turn for 2 mana. Yep. Yeah, I think Last Gasp is perfectly fine, balanced black removal spell. 2 Recollect. So 3 mana to get any card from your graveyard back to your hand. So, yep. Again, like really perfect card to have in this deck. God, it would be asking too much to make this. If this had been a Golgari specific card and this had dredge, I think that would be too much. To have a recursion spell that had dredge. And then 2 Putrefy. This was like the guild like power uncommon. This was like their lightning helix or mortify or whatever. So 1 card, 1 black, 1 green, destroy an artifact or creature, and it can't be regenerated. So yeah, like really strong effect for 3 mana. And then just finish off here. So we have the 2 like guild like color booster spells. So Rotting Spoil, 2 colors and 2 green, destroy a land. If black was spent to play it, all creatures get -1/-1 till end of turn. I'm not like it's a fine card, I guess. I mean it's land destruction, so I don't think it's that fine really. But it's such a weird card to include. Like thematically, it makes, you know, in terms of like narrative, sure, like the Golgari use a bunch of like fungus and gross plants and stuff to destroy a land, but like it's not what the deck strategy wants to do. It doesn't really care about destroying enemy lands. Yeah, this would make more sense if it was like get stuff back from your graveyard, kind of like Vigor Mortis, or if it did something with counters, or if it let you shuffle stuff back into your graveyard or something like that. Like then it would make more sense as a Golgari card, in my opinion. Vigor Mortis, I think, is a lot better, and it's like aligns more close with the deck and the kind of the guild as a whole wants to do. So 2 colors and 2 black, return a creature from your graveyard to play. So just a really good straightforward Zombify effect. And if green was spent to play, it gets a +1/+1 counter as well. So that's really good. I really wish, you know, there'd been 1 less rolling spoil and 2 Vigor Mortis, because I think Vigor Mortis is honestly pretty great. And then we have a single Golgari Rot Farm, which is the guild bounce land. And then Svogthos the Restless Tomb, which is the guild hall. So tap gives you colourless mana. 3 colours, 1 black, 1 green. Until end of turn, Svogthos becomes a black and green plant zombie creature with its power and toughness equal to the number of creature cards in your graveyard. So potentially turn this into like a really big creature, honestly. Really animates into, potentially a really big threat. So yeah, I think that's a pretty good guild land. Yeah. I say, as you're loading up your graveyard with dredge as well, and yeah. So it could have been. So overall, I do think the deck is honestly pretty good. It's well put together. I remember this, I think, being the strongest out of the original 4 Ravnica decks. But yeah, there's a few changes I would have done. Like, there's a few cards in here which I don't think are that great. Like I said, the Rolling Spoil and the Woodwraith Strangler I don't think was too good either. So Gaze of the Gorgon is possible. This is like a one of the hybrid spells. You regenerate a creature, and basically all creatures that were blocked or blocked by that creature die. So yeah. Golgari Germination, really surprised this wasn't in here. So whenever a non-token creature you control dies, you get a Saproling token. Mortarpede is a 4/1 for 4, and it has activated ability where it like gets lure, which is really good. I always think lure effects are good. And then alternate rares. So Savra is really good. I think Savra has to stay. Because all these Ravnica decks have a legendary creature as one of the rares. The Grave Troll is obviously good. I personally at the time would have preferred one of these two because like these were much more like straightforward, impressive effects to me, and like I think I liked these more than the Grave Troll. So Gleam Crawler, massive 6/6 for 6, has trample, and at the end of turn, return to your hand all creature cards in your graveyard that were put into your graveyard from play this turn. So just this kind of constant getting stuff back from play. Yeah, I really like Gleam Crawler. And Graveshell Scarab, this was a possibility as well. So 5 mana for a 4/4. You can pay 1 and sacrifice it to draw a card. So it's a sacrifice outlet for Savra, and this is what the deck wants to do. You draw a card, and it has Dredge 1. So it draws a card, which you can then use that to trigger for dredge effects. And it only dredges for 1 itself, so you can just mill 1, get it back, and do the whole thing again. So I think Graveshell Scarab would have actually done a much better job of showing off and interacting with like the dredge effects of the deck. But that's just my opinion. So overall, I do think the deck is actually pretty strong. It did play pretty well out of the box. And it was at the time, it was such like this weird, unexpected strategy. Beyond that, it's just kind of like green-black, like mid-range, this kind of like attrition recursion thing, which I quite like. I think that's the strength of green-black is like this ability that things never stay dead, and it's just really frustrating for your opponents to kind of permanently deal with stuff. It's always going to come back in some way. But that's my thoughts on the deck after reviewing it. What were your thoughts after seeing it? Did you have this deck and did you play it? What changes did you make with it? What are your opinions on Dredge? As I said, please put a comment below. I'd really like to hear thoughts and opinions on Dredge because it is quite a controversial mechanic, I would say. But that was Golgari Deathcreep, so I'll be back next time to look at the last deck from Ravnica. But until then, thank you for watching and listening, and have a good day.